Hi, I'm Reggie Turner. I'm here with Jim Miller, and the FlipSide starts right now. Welcome to the show. Tonight we're joined by Bernadette Wagner, the founder of Prime Time for Women. Welcome, Bernadette. How are you?
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's good to be with both of you.
Awesome. Well, for our viewers that don't know, and I think that will be few and far between, talk to us about Prime Time for Women. Give us the overview.
So the overview is it started in 2018, and it sort of started with me in my mid-50s, gone 10 years before that, saying, what does healthy aging look like? And the research basically says that positive social connections play a greater role in determining health, emotional well-being, and longevity more than diet and exercise combined. So if I'm going to age healthfully, I'm not going to do it alone. I'm going to do it in relationship, in community, and in commitment with others. And so I said, okay, I'm going to establish an organization that is really dedicated to uplifting women so that we can age healthfully together. Started as a social enterprise, and we are now a 501c3 nonprofit.
Excellent. Jim?
So the reality is, though, I know it's prime time for women, but this is a fact for all of us, right?
Yeah, so it's funny.
Reggie and I,
Yeah, so it's funny, when I do public speaking, there's always at least one man and says, what the heck, why aren't you talking to men too?
Right.
Doesn't this research apply? And the answer is, it definitely does, but I was advised when I was looking into doing this that if you try to sell to everyone, you'll sell to no one. So to find a niche and to really emphasize that. But I will say that I think Prime Time for Women's mission is particularly useful to men if they're looking to understand women at this stage of life. That's the smart women. The smart men really pay attention to Prime Time for Women.
Where do I sign up?
Yep, and it is a nonprofit, and we're looking for members. So yes, primetimeforwomen.org.
Excellent. Tell us a little bit about some of your programs of the past, and then transition and talk about some of the new things that you have on tap.
So, we've at one point when we were doing our live TV shows, we had both national and local celebrities on our program. I think one of my favorites was Stacy Persall, who is a veteran who started the Veterans Portrait Project. And she just heard about us and came and did her show here. And it was incredible to have her talk to us about her journey and what it means for her to emphasize other women and tell their stories. And in particular, the mission for Prime Time for Women, we say every woman deserves to be seen and heard. And when they have the opportunity to be seen and heard, we know that they inspire. And so we're looking to give women those opportunities. We've done, we have a book club that meets every month. And during the pandemic, that was virtual, but we're back in person now. And we have, one of my favorite projects that we did was, it was called the Community Afghan. And we invited women to crochet 4x4 granny square. And then Melissa Knoll of the yarn shop, she and her staff sewed it together. And it was, the idea was, one little granny square isn't going to keep anybody warm. But when you combine it with 256 granny squares, you get this beautiful Afghan. And it's like community members. By ourselves, we're not going to do anything. But when you connect together, it's amazing how many people you can serve, you can comfort, and you can keep warm and reach out to. And so we auctioned that off, and then we donated a portion of that to a local nonprofit that benefits women. Every event we do, we donate a portion to amplify the voices of women already making a difference in our community.
So common question.
Yeah.
Why would one nonprofit donate to another nonprofit?
So our nonprofit, we really believe that women are stronger when they work together, and we believe that collaboration is more important than competition, and we're not competing with anybody. We're hoping to meet the needs of women in our community, and we recognize that they're like the Women's Club. They've been here for 100 years. I'm a member of the Women's Club, and we just did a fundraiser where we attended the Menopause the Musical, and we had a private cocktail party at Bulls and Bears, and we had female-owned business leaders donate prizes, and we raffled them off, and we gave a portion of those proceeds to the Women's Club for their transitional housing program for women.
Menopause,
The musical.
the musical.
Did you not go see that, Jim?
I did not.
Oh my gosh, you should go. Everybody should go see that. Not just women. I mean, I have to say, I did stop and talk to a couple men when I was leaving. What did you think of it? And they were so funny. They loved it. It's a very funny musical.
Amazing. I
Yeah.
will say that I was at the event where Stacey Pearsall was, and her work is just absolutely incredible. And I mean, you get emotional just looking at these photographs. I mean, it's unbelievable.
And when you realize that she herself was injured twice by bombs and was told she would never walk, let alone work,
Right.
and she came back to say, this is how I can continue to make a difference.
Yeah,
It's powerful.
Yeah, you talk about indefatigable.
Yeah.
That is that lady.
Yeah,
for
for sure. Yeah.
Now, I am friends with you on social media, so I have seen a lot of your work over the years. Matter of fact, I think about 3 years ago, you had my wife.
Yes, your wife was on the show.
On the show. And I saw a lot in regards to your walks with women. Talk about what that program is titled and tell us a little bit about that program.
So we have two different walking programs. One of them is called A Year of Hikes, 52 weeks, 52 women, same trail. And we hiked the same 4-mile section of the AT with 52 different women for a whole year. And it was really this incredible gift for me to be able to note the seasons as the changes in the flora and the fauna, the way the sun hit the sky. It was just so beautiful. But more than that, what was so enriching to me was to be able to talk to these other women and to hear their stories. When you walk on a trail, your feet sync up, your footsteps match up, and what happens is there's I call it trail intimacy. The conversation becomes intimate, and people share on a different level than when you're sitting at a table eating or drinking. And it was really interesting to not only hear these stories from these women and get to reflect that in the blog, but over the course of the year, I realized that I saw myself differently based on who I was hiking with. They reflected a different part of me. They enriched my life. They challenged me, and I became, more open to really hearing other perspectives.
To think that for a full year, every week, you had a 4-mile hike with 52 different women.
Yeah.
That's an incredible commitment of time and scheduling and planning. How difficult was that?
It was crazy, but it was during the pandemic, and you probably know this, I'm not good at sitting by myself at home, so it was a little bit, I can remember I woke up one night, it was like 3:30 in the morning, and I'm crying, and my husband said, what's wrong? I said, I need to do something. I think we need a dog. I'm too lonely. And he's like, can we talk about it when the sun's up? And so I said, sure. And so we go back to sleep, and we wake up the next morning and goes, okay, let's talk about, are we going to get a dog? I said, oh no, I had this thought, I can do this, and I'll hike with women, and they'll talk back to me. And he's like, okay. So that's sort of how it came about. And I will say that there were some women who, I would say, why did you reach out? I hiked with one woman from South Carolina. One lady came from Delaware. I said, why did you hike with me? And one woman said, because I want you to talk about my twice exceptional daughter. And another mother said, I want you to talk about, I want to tell you about my daughter who's a lesbian. And I want people to know that I love her and I am standing by her. So every woman's story was different. Some were immigrants. I hiked with a woman who was 78 years old. Yeah.
On the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah.
I think I remember seeing the pictures from
Yeah, yeah, and people can go see these pictures still. They're on our website, and
Give us that website again.
primetimeforwomen.org, and it's under health and fitness. Hit the tab and drop down.
So is there a plan for a book about that journey?
So it's funny. I've had a lot of people ask me to do that. Maybe I need a mentor to help me along that drive. So that's something that is interesting to me. I've been keeping track. I've had 17 people ask me if I would consider doing that.
Now 18?
Yeah, and now 18. Now 18. Sorry, Reggie. But I think that that's a whole different skill set. And I will tell you, when you were saying, was it a big commitment to schedule? It wasn't that was a bit of a commitment, but the bigger commitment was to make myself sit down and write every single week. It was a real discipline.
Right.
And I think one of the things that happened, because I knew I was going to have to write the blog, I became a better listener. I wasn't thinking about what I was going to say because I was really trying to retain what they were saying to me.
Right.
So it was a good skill set for me to really listen. So many times we're thinking what we're going to say next that we don't really hear what other people are saying.
Absolutely.
So the other thing I was going to tell you is we're getting ready to launch our third Grandma Gatewood hike. And Grandma Gatewood was the first woman to solo hike the Appalachian Trail, and she did it at 67 years of age.
Wow.
She went on to hike the whole AT 3 more times, last time at age 75. And so every year, Primetime for Women pays tribute to this incredible woman who, when she first hiked through Washington County, she was approached by a reporter, and when he said to her, "Isn't this hard? Isn't this the most difficult thing you ever did?" She said, "No, raising 11 children in an abusive relationship was way harder. This is a piece of cake compared to that." So when we did our Grandma Gatewood hike, we raised funds, but we donated a portion of that to CASA because they support women in our community who are facing domestic violence. And we want to, kind of raise the awareness of that, and that we all have a role in helping our community members to deal with it.
When you look at what you were feeling in the midst of COVID and isolation, did this process of the walks that you did it improve your mental health?
Absolutely.
And what about the women that you were with?
I think so. They all seem to really enjoy it. And one of the things I will tell you that was the most rewarding is I never published anything without calling and reading it to them, so I got their feedback in real time.
Right.
And I had so many women cry when I read them their stories. I had one woman say, "Now I want to meet me." Or another woman said, "I didn't know I was so interesting." And honestly, I didn't say anything that they hadn't said, but I think in particular, women judge themselves harder than the rest of the world. And if this blog gives them a chance to see themselves the way the world sees them, then that's a gift that I gave them, and I feel really good about that.
So another push on the book front. You have these 52 blogs that are basically the blueprint for the book.
Right.
You just
Are you offering here, Legend? I'm taking you up on it.
But it seems like it's all right there.
That's what people have said to me. They said, "What the heck? Just take the next step." So, yeah.
Jim, I think we're gonna have her back.
Yeah,
When we do the book
on a book
launch.
tour. On the book tour.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and for the record, Bernadette, I've seen you with many different hats on, and you don't strike me as one who needs a whole lot of help to get anything done.
Well, but I'm doing so many other things that
I get
this
it.
takes. Yeah,
I
but
get it.
it would be fun to do.
It's a commitment for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
It is a commitment.
But one of the things I'm doing right now that takes a lot of time, but is so much fun, is I'm doing this monthly cooking experience with women from different parts, from all over the world. And it's called Yummy Year, Cultures, Cooking, and Connections. And I have cooked with women from Hungary, from Poland, from Cuba. And some of them have been in the country longer than others, and others are newer immigrants. But the idea is there's common ground to be explored. All of us have this desire to connect and to celebrate our shared humanity. And so, to me, food, maybe it's just because I like to eat and cook, I don't know, but food is the perfect vehicle for doing that.
What's a universal language?
Yeah, I think so. And I think everyone needs to eat, and I think most of us enjoy it. But the other thing is, food is an emotional connection to the past and also a window into your future. Like, people talk about their birthday dinners when they were 5 and 6, or they talk about, "Oh, I can't wait till when my grandbaby is this and I'm going to do this with them and have for their birthday party." So this idea that people, regardless of your culture, regardless of what food, if you like spicy food or tofu, or you're vegetarian or vegan, or you're a total carnivore, there's all these opportunities to connect and share the stories. So I love, I'm cooking tomorrow with Cidalia Broca, and she is from Brazil. And somebody said, "What are you cooking?" I said, "I don't know." She told me it was going to be a surprise, but we'll have to see.
Wow.
But I've cooked with a lady who was she's Italian. She's 80, I think 82, and we made biscotti together. And oh my gosh, it was so good. And
Oh,
now I'm making
wow.
biscotti at my house all the time. So that's
Oh, I
great.
can imagine. Wow. So I got to ask you, you have all of these women that you're bringing into this effort, whether through walking or this cooking exercise. Where do you find these women? How do they get to you?
I think some of them see stuff on our website and on our Facebook page. I recently did a blog called Hey Boomer, and that audience has reached out to me. Wendy Green is the author of the podcast Hey Boomer. Elizabeth Chung, who is the executive director of the Asian American Center, during COVID, she asked me to do a project with women from different backgrounds to talk about their experience of the pandemic. So we did a video called Women Speak, Reflections and Lessons from the Pandemic, and spoke to 4 different women about their experience of the pandemic. And of course, your experience isn't going to be the same as everybody else's, but it's not meant to be. It's meant to be a vehicle to make you think and reflect, and also maybe to celebrate that your resilience, that you made it through.
The other thing that I see that you're doing that is really unique is that you're in this year's class of Leadership Washington County.
Yes, I'm super excited about it.
Now, most people do leadership because they want to become more acclimated with the community, but you're well acclimated, and obviously you know a lot of folks. You can pick up the phone and find resources everywhere, but just as much as you may receive from this program, there's a lot that you can give to the program.
I hope so.
And you're going to be able to meet with like the next generation of leaders that are coming up. What are you looking for out of this experience?
So I am looking for collaboration, because that's positive social connections don't just work on a social level, they work on a community level. And the more we collaborate in our community lives, the stronger our community will be. And Hagerstown, Washington County, we have so many possibilities, and we just have to take them and move it to the next level. Some people say, oh, this is an issue or this is a problem. I said, okay, well, what are you going to do about it? And I think together we're going to have a much better chance of resolving those issues or concerns and just celebrating the positive things. I mean, I think I am looking to connect with people who have that same dream, that same passion. And I do think that leaders are people who aren't self-promoters, but they're people who promote the others in the community.
Right.
And I mean, that's always been my thought. And some people think that that's not what a leader is. A leader has to do it first. I don't think so. I think sometimes a leader is somebody that empowers other people. I wear a bracelet that says, we lift up others, we rise by lifting up others. And that's a really positive thing for me, to know that I don't have to do it alone. In fact, it's not good for us to do it alone.
Absolutely, it is not. Especially in the environment that we've come out of being isolated, right?
Right.
But you know, going back to, I'm still fascinated by your 52 walks.
Okay.
So your blogs that came out of that, so you would go on a walk, be really an active listener while you're getting in all this exercise,
Yeah.
retain all this information, and then go home and put it on paper? Was that your process?
Yes, although I will say after like the 5th or 6th one, I was carrying my phone because we took lots of pictures too. And maybe it wasn't the 5th or 6th, maybe it was closer to the 15th or 16th one. I started dictating little bits, just little teeny bits, because I didn't want the phone to distract or detract from the conversation. And what I did a lot of times was get back to the car and stand there and say, hey, what was your favorite part of this? What do you remember? What do you want? What's the most important thing from your perspective that you want me to share? This is your story. You deserve to be seen and heard. Okay, what do you want me to put in this blog? And of course I told it from my perspective, and got to talk about if somebody raised a concern about caring for their elderly mother with dementia, then I said, I do have some understanding of that. We are taking care of my father-in-law. So there was an opportunity for me to be present and to sympathize, but it was really, everything was driven from the perspective of my guest.
We're going to have to talk more offline about this, because there is something you have sparked in me, in regards to your walks? And I have some ideas running around in my head, and I think
All right.
I want to borrow from
Yeah.
your expertise.
Well, one of the things that you were asking me about what I hope to do, I would like to, through Leadership Washington County, is to highlight women entrepreneurs.
Yes.
So I've done a blog with hiking, I've done a blog with cooking. I'm interested in highlighting women in this stage of life. So this is crazy, but this is me. I stopped by the bakery that's at Mulberry Loft. The lady doesn't know me, she's never met me. Hi, I'm Bernadette Wagner, I heard you just started this. And she, worked all these years and finally said, I don't know, I just felt like if I didn't give it a shot, I'd regret it.
Mm-hmm.
I am really interested in this idea of overcoming fears so that we're living our life fully at this stage, kind of challenging these ageist stereotypes that we can't do it because we should have done it. I'm so much smarter now because I know that I don't know everything. So seems like that's not possible to be smarter because you can admit that you don't know everything, but it's true.
Right.
And I don't know, I don't think 65 is, I hate the expression over the hill. I was at the gym and some man said to me, how old are you? I said, I said, not at all. He goes, what? I said, I'm not old at all. I said, do you want to know my age? I'll tell you my age. Because I said, old is a mindset.
Yes,
And this
it
guy's
is.
like, okay, I'm getting the heck away from this lady. But yeah, I just thought it was weird that he said anything to me, inappropriate. And then also I thought, it's offensive.
Yeah, I work in a profession where I need to ask my clients their age, but just to walk up to someone in the gym and ask their age, that is
Yeah, and
a little different.
yeah, and whether he was saying, I don't know where it was coming from. Oh, you can do that at this age, or I don't know where he was coming from. But I just said, he said, how old are you? I said, not at all. And he had to sit there. He's like, so anyhow, I think that it's really a special time in life for women in particular who culturally we have been caregivers, we have been parents, and not that we haven't had partners doing that, certainly I have had that, but I think we have been socialized to always put everybody else first. And I think at this stage of life, that's what Prime is about, saying, yeah, I've made some mistakes and I've learned from them, and I've got things to do, places to go. I'm not done yet. I have a purpose, and nobody can tell me I can't do it. So that's what prime time for me means.
You talk about prime time, and I understand that's a period of life. I got to tell you, my youngest daughter, who went to the filming of one of your TV shows,
Yes.
still talks about it. And somehow I feel like that experience is going to make her less nervous about taking risks, taking chances on things that she wouldn't want to do. Have you had that experience with others?
Yes. And I will say, Jim, it's funny that you asked that, because I have said not only is prime time also for men, it's also for younger women. And I say that prime is not an age, it's an attitude about aging. And the attitude is, I got things to do. I'm going to live my life to the fullest and nobody can tell me it. And I'm going to collaborate with others and we will be successful because of that social connection. And I think that resonates across the board. And one of the things I'm really interested in, I don't even know if I should say this out loud, but what the heck, I'm really been reading and researching the benefits of intergenerational relationships, cross-generational relationships. So I was saying that I wanted to do a cornhole tournament that I would bill as the world's largest cornhole tournament for people of a combined age of 90. So it might be two 45-year-old women, or it might be an 80-year-old woman and her 10-year-old granddaughter, or it would be me with my 30-year-old daughter, and it just could be anything. But this idea that we have so much to learn, and I really dislike when people my age denigrate the younger generation as this or that. And I don't like when the younger generation says, oh, they're old farts, they're old fogies, or whatever. I think we have to learn. I have so much to learn from my kids, but I have stuff to teach them too.
So you don't like the boomer term on TikTok?
I don't, well, first of all, I don't really do TikTok. Shame on me, I know, but.
Prime time for women is not on TikTok?
Yet.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have to talk about that too, Reggie. But like Wendy Green's podcast, Hey Boomer, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I don't.
But boomer can be a respectful and a disrespectful
Right,
term.
and it depends on how it's used. And when
Exactly.
Right.
Wendy uses it, she talks a lot about where we're going in the future. So for me, that's a really positive thing.
I have to ask, on your website, there were some other interesting topics: finance, inspiration, move to improve, navigating change. Can you speak to some of the things you're doing around those areas?
So right now, we did a series called Navigating Change, and we had a woman speak about losing her son to addiction and how that played out in her life and how she's now a counselor and supporting other people. We had the Navigating Change series. We also had somebody who was, oh gosh, I'm blanking now that you asked me that. But just, we had a life coach who was dealing with divorce. Oh, we had a woman who was a divorce lawyer who wrote a book called The Graying of American Divorce, and it turns out the highest population of people divorcing are people over 50. And so there's a lot of women who are trying to navigate that. That kind of drove this idea. We did Women, Wine, and Financial Freedom, because women, because they outlive men, maybe because they have better social connections, I don't know, on average 7 years longer than men.
Right.
I think because they divorce, because their spouses die, they need to be well prepared to understand the financial picture. So we had a series of, I think it was 8 women who presented different topics on financial matters, and we paired them with women-owned wineries because learning can be fun. And so each session started out with a woman vintner or winery owner, and then we had the hour-long presentation by a different financial advisor, a banker, an attorney who did estate planning. So lots of different things like that. I think most of our viewers would know Tina Fraley. She did
Yes.
a 6-week program called Move to Improve during the pandemic, where she wasn't in her space, but we did, I interviewed her about her book, and then for 6 weeks she did a little further interview, an inspirational talk, and then led an exercise class that could be done right in your home.
Wow. So, you know, I got to say, in the short time that I've known you, relatively short time, you've been a member of the school board very successfully. You've started and operated a volunteer effort to organize and make sure that nonprofits have, not-for-profits and people that need it have volunteers. You've done this latest adventure and many, many others, I'm sure, that I'm not aware of. I'm sure that the social connection piece is important for you. What else drives you to be the, what I'll call, go-getter that you are? And I say that in a respectful manner.
Yeah, I think I like people, and I truly believe that there's nobody that I can't find common ground with. And I know that in our polarized world today, that many people think I'm just naive, but there's a woman, she's a Sikh Indian. Her name is Valerie Kaur. She has a website called Radical Love, and she says that it all starts with curiosity, and if you have the ability to wonder about somebody, then you have the ability to ask yourself what is going on with them, and that's the curiosity. You have curiosity, and that drives questioning, and when you have questioning, then you develop understanding, and when you have a little bit of understanding, you have compassion, and when you have compassion, you can have unity. And I think that that's possible on an individual level, and I'd like to think that it can be a tool that we can use to heal our culture, our society, and our world.
This broadcast is sent out to all of the Antietam cable subscribers, or Antietam broadband, excuse me. It's also available on YouTube. I'm sure there are people that are going to watch this that are going through their own troubling times, whatever that may be, whether it's divorce, health, loss of a loved one, whatever that case may be. Is there a common place that you would tell them to start, to rebuild, to focus on the future, to move forward?
Well, I would say that I'm a big believer in counseling. I mean, good grief, my kids would say, okay, there goes mom again. if my kids were struggling, and my husband's a psychiatrist, we took our kids to a counselor. He was their dad. He wasn't their psychiatrist.
Right.
And we always tell this one story when my son was having temper tantrums in 2nd grade. And my husband said to him, Mike, you better knock off this crap. I said, okay, you handled that well. But, but he was being his dad. He wasn't being his counselor. And you know what? Mike never did it again. But I will say, when our kids had different issues, we took them to counseling. When Matt and I have had bumps along the road after, we're all going on 43 years of marriage,
Wow.
we have done counseling. And I think it's the strong people who seek to heal themselves. And I think we don't all have the answers, because if we did, then we wouldn't be vulnerable.
Fight for your happiness is the message.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting. I have more questions, but I've been controlling this conversation for way too long. So if you,
I'm listening to everything, and it's hard to ask what's next, because there's so much right now.
Yeah.
In regards to what you're doing, is there kind of a broad vision of what you would like your legacy to look like for the community?
I don't really care about my legacy. I think.
You don't care about it, but you're creating an incredible one at the same time.
Yeah, I hope that, so like one of the things that meant something to me, I was recently asked if I would be the host or hostess of the Washington County Women's Commission 35th anniversary celebration. And I thought, I am going to get to introduce 35 women that are going to inspire me. And so for me, that was not that I'm getting to speak, but I'm going to get to meet these
Right.
women. And so I think to myself, and I say this a lot and I mean it, if we don't worry about who gets the credit, it's amazing what we can get done. And so I try not to, I one time, one of the things, we are a nonprofit now, and we have a board of directors, and I am looking to get my board together in person, hopefully in the first week of November, so that they can help crystallize this mission. Right now, I might be doing way too many little different things, a little scattered.
Little
But
strategic planning on the way.
yeah, and but you can't really do strategic planning by yourself. And
Right.
we have had 2 Zoom meetings, but we have a physician in Canada who's the leading health expert in Canada on vaccines, who's serving on our board. So I guess we have an international board.
Wow.
We have a woman in California who serves as an advisor. She is the corporate consultant for the Asian Americans, or the Korean American Center in California. And so we have all these different women that we're trying to bring together. And they have a lot to say. But in the meantime, I'm not going to sit still, because that's not me.
that's not you, for sure.
That's not me.
Can we go back, because you talked about a virtual meeting and you talked about a number of virtual events, saving and accepting things like the walks and so forth. But we have, before COVID, we had the online shopping, which pulled us all away from the malls and the strip centers. We have online research through the internet, so we don't have to go to the public library anymore. We had COVID, which has spawned at-home working and virtual church services. And those connections are being lost at an alarming rate, in my view. What do you feel? Do you feel like the pendulum will swing back? And if not, what do you feel will the pendulum swing back? What, in your view, has been the reaction, the problem that's caused, and is it reversible?
So I would say that the technology definitely filled a void for a lot of people during the pandemic, and enabled some people to be able to continue to work and then get paid so that they could provide for their families. So I'm not totally saying that the technology doesn't have a role and isn't purposeful. I do think that sometimes Facebook is one of those things that might be a necessary, I wouldn't say evil, but a necessary, it has some downsides to it. And in that, it creates a sense of, when I'm looking to bring people together, some people look at other people's posts and they say, oh, they have that, I'm not there. And so it can leave people feeling like left out. And there's actually a term for that called FOMO, fear of missing out, I think is what it stands for. I honestly think that I use Facebook to promote Prime Time for Women, and most of my personal Facebook page is just more Prime Time for Women stuff. Every once in a while I put something about my family or my kids, but I don't want to say that it's bad. I do think that I am looking forward to the reconnecting in person. And so when we did the outing at the Bulls and Bears, we had 30 women at Bulls and Bears in their downstairs retail space or cocktail space.
Right.
And then we went over to the Maryland Theater, and it was so great to be together in person and to just hear the stories. And women didn't know each other that met each other, and we did some icebreakers. And I think that those are important, and I would like to see more of that. It's one of the things I'm excited about Leadership Washington County, is I'm looking to make those connections. Many of the people I already know, but I am really looking forward to being able to spend time with them. In fact, I just found out that Mary Ellen Waltmeyer, who I've admired for years, is going to be my mentor. So
Nice.
yeah, so that, I mean, I remember Mary Ellen when my son was in 4-H, and he got to be the Ishkate, and he talked about Mary Ellen Waltmeyer forever, and you know, then I got to work with her on a couple different projects over the years, and now she's going to be my mentor. So I just feel like it's a little bit of full circle.
Full circle.
Mm-hmm. When I started Prime Time for Women, Mary Ellen was one of the first women I reached out to. Can you guide me? Can you help me? And she did. I mean, she's a phenomenal resource in our community.
She absolutely is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She absolutely is.
And you may lean on her for your strategic planning if
Yeah.
you so choose.
we will. That was part of the plan, actually.
My last question is this.
Yeah.
What have you learned? What are the major takeaways? If you were to say the top 3 aha moments that you've had as a result of this journey, what would those be?
That what we experience on a personal level also applies on a community level. So connections matter on a personal level, and they matter on a community level. I also think that it's amazing what we can accomplish if we don't worry about who gets the credit. And I would say maybe the other thing is that I've just been really fortunate to have an incredible spouse and children and friends and family. And I feel like growing up in a family of 7 sisters and a mom who made me look quiet. I know it's frightening, but I know the power of female connections. I know what that support feels like, and I want to bring that to other women.
Excellent. Well, this has been incredible. So one more time for our viewers, will you give them your website if they want to see more in regards to everything that you're into and all the things that you have cataloged on your site?
And I will also say we're very open. They can reach out and suggest topics for us to explore.
Become members?
They can become members. Every time you make a contribution, it supports us in donating to another nonprofit. Yes, we would love to have your financial support because it makes it possible for us to continue to do this.
Personal and corporate, right?
Yes, yes.
And donations can be made on your website?
Yes, they can. And I would say that, but we're also interested in their ideas because every woman deserves to be seen and heard. And those ideas might be just the next thing that inspires somebody else. So that's primetimeforwomen.org. And you can, there's a contact form, just send us your ideas or go to the membership page and become a member.
Excellent. Well, I have it down here. Jim, we'll have her back when the book is released.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Okay.
Notice we're committing you to the book. You haven't committed to it, but we're committing you to it.
No, I'm committing Reggie to help me with that book.
There you go.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being with us. And we look forward to hearing again when you come back to share more of what you're doing and
You
how
want to
you're
hear me
expanding
talk
things
more?
from-
Oh my gosh. Somebody's always looking for punishment.
This is your 3rd time on our show, I believe,
I think so.
and I've learned something every time.
Well, that's great.
So.
I'm glad, and I always feel so fortunate to be here.
All right.
And your community connections thing, our next topic after you is going to be politics. So that's a good lesson for our politicians that are potentially going to get elected in November to learn is community connections are important.
That's right. That's absolutely true.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll be back with more after the break. Welcome back to the show. We have finished our primaries. We still have some races that are undecided, but we do have some that we have a pretty clear gauge on. So let's kind of walk through.
And just for context, we're filming this show on Wednesday evening, the 20th of July. So
yes,
by the time the final air happens next Tuesday or Wednesday, these are going to be probably out-of-date statistics, potentially.
Because we're waiting on mail-in ballots as of today.
Absolutely.
To decide some of these races. Jim, first up, I'm looking at the Democratic Central Committee. It looks like that committee is going to look very different.
It does.
Than what it looked like before. The interesting thing, the leading vote getter is Angela Batista, a young lady. She had over 11% of the vote in that. And I'm looking at some of the other names, some that I recognize and some that I do not. One of the things that we talked about when I look at this is all the couples, right? All the political couples that was running for positions, and it looked like with the Grossmans, James Grossman was running for this position and his wife is running for delegate. It doesn't look like that he's going to get through.
No, it doesn't.
Because he's not one of the 4 top males. To be able to get through.
And that's an important point because on the Democratic Central Committee, they say it has to be 4 males and 4 females.
4 females, yes. Yes. Anything in particular that you see about this race?
Not particularly. There were a couple that I really, just based on what I know, Dale Ruby, for example, I really expected him to make it, and it doesn't look like he did. And there may be a couple others like that, but I don't think there's any particular surprises for me. I'll be very, very truthful with you both on the Democratic and the Republican side. I can't speak with as much authority about these races as I'd like to.
Right. Agreed. Moving up next, on the Republican side, it's vote for the top 9.
Right.
There's no breakdown in regards to male or female there. What I saw is interesting here, and one of the questions that I have is Wayne Kiefer. Wayne Kiefer was the leading vote getter there. He had about 13.6% of the vote at this time. And the other thing that stood out to me, well, there was a few things that stood out to me. On the political couple standpoint, we had Mam Cham there. It looks like he is not going to make it through. He was appointed last year, but it doesn't look like that he'll be a member of the committee this year. Also, Ryan Beachley, I believe
he's in the top 9.
He is in the top 9.
Yep, he is.
And then we'll talk again when we get to county commissioners in regards to how his wife performed. But the other thing that I noticed here that was interesting is
I know where you're going with this. Let me see. Go ahead.
Jerry DeWolf is in. I mean, he's 9 right now.
Yeah.
He's at the bottom, and I think that speaks to something, right? Because he's been the voice and the face of that committee. And now he's just squeaking by to stay in. What say you?
Yes, I would agree. I have strong opinions there that I will allow to remain within my head.
Now, the one question that I have with Wayne Kiefer
is, can he do both?
Can he do both?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
And if not, then does the 10th person on the list then move up based on the fact of the other race?
One would assume. And if he wins both, does he get to choose? I mean, there's an obvious choice there.
I don't really think that there's a choice there, right?
Well, yeah, I wouldn't think so, but stranger things have happened.
On the Democratic side for Sheriff Junior McLeod, he was running unopposed, so he is moving on through. On the sheriff's side, we have a neck-and-neck race that's going to be decided by the mail-in ballots. Jim Holsinger is leading right now by less than 100 votes. He's leading Brian Albert. It looks like Greg Alston is out.
Greg Alton? Yes,
Alton,
I would
Greg
agree.
Alton is out in
And
that
actually,
race.
I have actually Jim leading. I don't know which is more accurate. We're both looking at the same webpage, but I have Jim leading by a couple hundred votes. I have.
I take that back. That was bad math.
Yeah. Yeah, and interestingly, Brian Albert, when I looked late last night after the election results started to come in, Brian Albert, this is kind of going back and forth
He
a couple
was
of
leading
times.
most of the evening.
Yeah, it was kind of, so clearly the mail-in votes, or early votings I should say, because we haven't counted mail-in votes yet, had
Albert ahead with the early vote.
well, he was almost ahead.
I'm sure
Well, no,
in
he
the
was
early
ahead,
vote he had
actually.
809.
And 9 and 639 for Jim Holsinger.
Right.
That's correct. Yes.
But it was when the election day vote continued to come in and the rest of the precincts, that's when Holsinger kind of moved ahead.
Correct. Judge of the Orphans Court.
Judge of the Orphans Court. We're talking about political families. A friend of the show, Matt Breeden, him and his wife were running for different positions.
Dare we say political dynasty? Not really.
Well, of all the political couples that are running, just kind of giving a preview, these are the two that look the most successful, right?
Yes.
Because obviously she's well ahead in this race here, so it looks like she's going to move forward.
Well, maybe. I mean, she's not that far ahead. She is at 1,064 votes. Paul Bannister is at 997.
But the election day, though, she increased her lead because she had 4,530.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. That's right. That's the early day. So she's 400 votes ahead.
Yeah, she's 400 votes ahead with mail-in and provisional ballots left. So we'll see how that moves.
Yep.
On the Democratic side, when it came to register of wills, we've talked a lot
Single
about Jason
candidate.
Malott,
Yep.
single candidate. He got through, and then Lacey Fluke got through on the other side. But the thing that's interesting about this, her vote total was over 2 times more than his. So I'm not sure what that says about where we're going to be headed in the general.
I think that it says that we have closed primaries. I could be 100% wrong here, but I think it is very unlikely that Jason Malott gets unseated. He is just too good at that job. And I don't know a lot about Ms. Fluke, but I can just tell you that in my opinion, that office is run flawlessly.
Yeah. But I think a theme of what we're seeing here in regards to these local elections is, and it's a thing that we normally see in primaries, that the Republicans showed up more so than Democrats.
They did. But then again, in Washington County, there are far more Republicans than there are Democrats.
Right. Which means that there could be an issue there. However, though, when we get to the general, independents come into play, and they're going to be the decider in a lot of these races, right?
They are, for sure. Because unfortunately, we have closed primaries.
Yes. So Kevin Tucker was unopposed with the clerk of the city court, state's attorney, and you've pronounced Gina's
Gina
last name.
Cerencione
Gina Cerencione.
was
She
unopposed
is unopposed
for
there.
state's attorney.
In the treasurer's race, where we had the political couple battles going on, we had Matt Breeden against Ma'am Cham, and this was a rout.
This was a big-time route.
This is a rout.
I talked to Matt a week or so ago, and he projected this, and of course I didn't know, but he was right.
I would have thought that it would be a rout as well. I just looked at kind of some of the stuff bubbling up under the scenes in regards to that. So hopefully those things will smooth itself out when we move forward. Now we get to our county commissioners race. On the Democratic side, we only had 2 candidates who will move into the general, Sterling Sanders and Dave Williams.
Interestingly, Dave Williams has a fairly
It's a narrow.
a fairly narrow gap.
I mean, it's less than 100 votes that he has over Sterling Sanders. But if you look at the vote totals of the two, and then you start comparing that to the Republican side, obviously the enthusiasm and the voter turnout is not there. So, in our most recent county commissioner election, the 5 Republicans that won through the primary became our county commissioners.
Yeah, so I will tell you, I know Sterling, good guy. I actually had a chance. I took the opportunity to meet with Dave probably 2 months ago.
Yep.
I'm not going to agree with any elected official on 100% of the issues. But as a Republican looking at a Democratic candidate, I got to tell you, there were many of the issues that he and I were right in sync on.
Yeah. We're moving to the Republican side. It looks like, obviously, we knew that Terry Baker was not going to come back because he is running for 1C. So we knew that the makeup was going to look a little bit different, but it looks like we're going to have 2 new members based on how things look, and there's not something drastic in the mail-in vote. It looks like Jeff Klein was the leading vote getter. I think that's something that we kind of projected when we talk about this race, that unseating him was just not likely. Followed up by Randy Wagner. Third, and this surprised me a little bit, Wayne Kiefer. And I know most of the night he was he was teetering in the 5th spot.
He was.
But he's bounced up to the 3rd spot. And then it looks like, John Barr ran as an independent before. He came back home to Republicans, and it looks like he very well may be back in as 4th. And then the last spot is by Derek Harvey. Derek Harvey was new. He served in the Trump administration. He put quite a bit of money in this campaign to introduce himself to the county, and looks like he has solidified the 5th spot there. In 6th, it looks like Charles Burkett will not be back. I mean, he's pretty much conceded already, so I think when you look at the mail-in votes that are out there, he doesn't see a pathway for him to become there. And you and I have talked about this, off air. Here's one of the things that stands out to me. Ron Bowers and Bob Rucci.
Yeah.
Neither one of them did very well.
No, they didn't.
Bob was one of the low vote getters, or probably the lowest vote getter in getting in the city council.
In the last election.
In the last election, yeah. And now
I don't know whether this is carryover from people that don't want the stadium, although clearly, Bob was an arm's length from that process, or at least far more of an arm's length than he was previously. I don't know what was going on there. I really expected Bob to get in. And, Ron, and I know Ron's somewhat of a polarizing figure, but I would be hard-pressed to find anyone else in this community that has dedicated, whether in office or out of office, the amount of hours and sweat equity that Ron Bowers has donated. And again, I know he's polarizing, but guess what? He's also right quite a bit of the time.
Well, the one of the things we talked about on the show is, Ron has been a lifelong Democrat, and he ran as a Republican.
That could affect him. I hope it didn't, but that could affect him.
But obviously, changing parties to run for this election did not work.
Nope.
It looks like none of the 2 female candidates did not receive any traction.
Yeah.
We talked about Ryan Beachley. It looks like he's going to be in with the Republican Central Committee, but Victoria Beachley, she did not do very well, and Valerie Oliver actually did significantly worse. And then some of the other candidates really didn't run a campaign. Like, for instance, Jamie Lawrence, there was a filing, but there was never really a campaign run in regards to him. And then Caden Snyder, and I know you talked about a dust up with him. I mean, he did very poorly there. And then Michael Sprecher and Brian Tanner, those are the other others that ran that did not do very well at all either.
Yeah.
So based on our tradition, in our county, and it being with the number of Republicans and Democrats, it's hard for me to see one of these Democrats getting one of those 5 spots.
It's going to be a tough. It's going to be a tough run.
Yeah,
for sure. Judge of the Circuit Court.
Judge Circuit Court is up in the air. That is like
very
the
close.
Tightest race.
Yeah, very close.
That is going to come up to the mail-in ballots in regards to how that moves. Very tight. And here's a question that I have. So on the Republican, since this is a nonpartisan race, on the Republican side of the ballot, Adam Drevel won a very tight race. He is up.
Right.
Then on the Democratic side of
Joe
the ballot,
Michael won.
Joe Michael won.
Yes.
So my question is, if each one of them wins on one side of the ballot, do they run again in the fall?
Yeah.
So it's not the cumulative of the Democratic and the Republican side.
I believe they run in the fall.
They'll run in the fall, unless one of them wins on both sides of the
I
ballot.
don't know that. I shouldn't say that because honestly, I don't know.
We're going to have to make a call to Barry.
Yes, we are.
So that we can know a little bit about that. On the Democratic side of District 2B, Brooke Grossman has a pretty sizable lead
Yeah, not surprising.
over Laditra Robinson. I mean, she has a 18-point lead there with us needing the other ballots to come in. And then just wrapping up that race on the Republican side, Brenda Cham is up about 9 points or a little over 120 votes. She is up on Thomas Stoltz.
Yep.
But by the time we come back next week, we'll be able to talk more about these and see how these races shake out after those ballots come in. And we'll be able to summarize the rest of the state races that we have interest in as well.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that is all the time that we have for tonight. We hope that you'll like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and send us your comments to feedback@theflipsidetv.com. That is feedback@theflipsidetv.com. But most importantly, we hope you join us again next week for another episode of The Flip Side.
It's all good, baby.
Is it really all good?
If you love me enough to routinely test your handyman skills, not to mention the strength of your marriage, then of course you'll visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure I'm in the right car seat.